That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe narrated by Disney, or current Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today, I have for you Book 6 out of the 9-book series Legacy of the Force. Today we have again Inferno by Troy Denning. I actually quite like this cover. Look at Luke looking so awesome. I really like this a bit. It's a lot better than most of the ones we got in New Jedi Order, and you can see a little bit of Kashyyyk in there. Again, it's solid. Like, again, I really don't feel the need to defend anything at this point. Like, we're so far in that you are either down and with it or you aren't. You know, this far in, nothing's gonna change your mind. So if you already hate it, there's nothing I can do to help you. Like, I've explained myself adequately well. I've proven you all wrong time and time again, and I'm kind of tired of it. I've said what needs to be said. I got some additional things to say in spoilers for specific things, but overall, this is fantastic. I mean, it's pretty short. This is one of the shorter books of all the Expanded Universe. It's only like 200-something pages. It's almost 300, but it's like 290-something. So it's not even like a full 300 pages. So it's a rather short novel. Very quick-paced, very fun. You know, and from memory, I remembered after Sacrifice, the nuance of Jason kind of like being gone, and that it was just going to be purely evil Darth Caedus from here on forward. But no, even with this book, there is still nuance in this whole fall from grace, because it's still, you know, because it's a novel, so we still get to be inside Caedus / Jason's head, so we still get so much nuance out of that. And I almost said performance, you know, because sometimes, you know, like Jason would be talking to Ben, and you know it would say things like he would sound genuinely hurt and stuff like that. So there's so much nuance here, even still. He's clearly, you know, he's in his full villain era where he's become Darth Caedus. But as this book goes along and he continues to make these dark side blunders, you know, he will further fall and descend, especially as more and more people leave him, which is part of the sacrifice. But also when you feel alienated and alone, it's easier to commit more evil things. So I think for the last trilogy of books, 7, 8, and 9, is probably going to be more of just this is evil Jason, because kind of everything that kind of held him together outside of Alana is kind of gone now in terms of people being on his side, which is due to his own making. It's entirely his fault. But, you know, we get more of Jason Tino-Khan in this book, or Caedus, because, of course, that was the whole reason, right? His daughter and his wife, you know, even, you know, for the initial change in his character anyway, during his 5-year sojourn, seeing, and we haven't even seen this chronologically, because they addressed this in Fate of the Jedi with him seeing a dark man and in his visions and stuff. But that's only a small part of his 5-year sojourn. It's just one thing we learned from it, which we'll get to when we get to it in Fate of the Jedi. But, you know, so we get more scenes with them, which is really nice to see. And again, one of the greatest additions I can say about Dark Nest and Legacy of the Force is just that they made this canon. You know, because New Jedi Order basically bailed on the whole idea of Tino-Khan and Jason, and I never understood why, because they fit so well together. And Young Jedi Knights seem to be setting it up so well as to be something that should be a thing moving forward, that they should grow. You know, am I happy that it's become this sort of relationship instead of just a happy, fruitful one? Yeah, absolutely, but also adds to the tragedy of the whole situation. But, you know, Lamaya's dead because Luke murdered her in the last book. Jason has also stopped looking for Ben as an apprentice, or he still has some hope in that, but he's mostly given up on that, so he started pursuing Tahiri Vela, which is another big thing that upsets people because of all the character development that Tahiri had in New Jedi Order. They feel this does not go well with her character. Now, you know, Tino-Ka and Tahiri are some of my favorite characters in Star Wars. There's just ever. I love Tino Ka and Tahiri. Do I think this contradicts her character development? No. Is this necessarily what I would have done with the character? No, either, to be honest. I wouldn't have gone this route. But I can absolutely understand the logic behind this decision. And she's not even, like, evil right now. But she's being tempted by Jason, because Jason has the flow walking ability. So he's showing her instances of Anakin and stuff, and people are like, well, she healed from that. She's over it. She mourned, she grieved, she's over it. But again, in normal life, we watch people die, or we watch people leave us, abandon us, or whatever the case may be, whether it be emotional or physical abandonment or departure. We deal with that, we move on. But if you had the potential, if you had the temptation, and you would, maybe not 100% certainty, but you were more certain than not, over like 50%, that, hey, I can bring my dead wife back from the dead. I can have her again in my life. Or I can have my son back or my daughter back because something tragic happened there. Not trying to trigger anybody in case something has actually gone down in your life like that. A mother, a father, a cousin, a best friend. So many things here of somebody you miss terribly, and you have the chance to bring them back. Now, do I think Jason can actually do that? No, but that's part of the temptation, right? Is that not going to affect you? I addressed this earlier when I was reviewing New Jedi Order, but it absolutely would. You're lying to yourself if you say it wouldn't. But this, again, is a fantasy/sci-fi series where this could be possible. So, of course, it's going to affect her a bit. And she's... I guess the biggest thing that's a bit weird is that she's super in Jason's camp. But again, that is because there's a potential to bring Anakin back. But that's probably the weakest part of something with this book. But that is something going on. Jason is furthering down his descent into villainy. And the rebels, they're not rebels, but the Confederation or Han and Leia and everything that they're up to happens on Kashyyyk, which is kind of where the main gist of everything goes down. But earlier on in the book, without too much spoilers, there is the funeral for Mara Jade's funeral. And that entire funeral for Mara Jade's passing, I should say. And that goes really well. It's very smoothly. And I'm being sarcastic because it wasn't. Because Jason tries to arrest his parents at the funeral, and then shows up late to the funeral. Nobody knows this, but of course he's the one who killed Mara. So on top of everything else, he's showing up late to the funeral of somebody he murdered, and then is trying to win the approval ratings of the people in the audience more so than consoling his family. There's an amazing meme on Instagram, but it's kind of Dark Mold or something, or Meld. And it's got that, like, one really Chad-looking dude, that's, like, blonde, and he's, like, sitting there. It's like when you show up to the Mara Jade's funeral after having just killed her or whatever. It's a great little thing. I sent it to Marcel and Brennan. It was really funny. But, yeah, so... Again, it's just Jason being very antagonistic, Darth Kaitis being very antagonistic for the entire book, and it's just fully... He even occupies the Ossus Academy to protect the Academy and from Confederation attacking them, but it's mainly just a ploy of like, hey, try anything against me, I have these kids here. He never says that explicitly, because that would be illegal, but that's kind of like the vibe behind it, even if he doesn't admit that. But as I said, everything kind of converges on Kashyyyk, and Jason makes some decisions there, which basically makes everybody alienated from him. Like, people are just backing away. So many people made excuses for him. So many people were kind of understanding, but now a lot of people are just kind of like not with it anymore. When he had to sacrifice so much, he had, because he really loved Ben. But now even Ben is against him. So he really has no one except his wife and kid. Or not even wife, just his lover and his kid. And by the end of the book, that may not even be true in of itself. So, Jason is still struggling between Kaitis and Jason. I think there's still a distinction between the two, and they kind of swap out here and there. but it is a continuing descent, and I think by the end of this book, we're at a position now where he is mostly just going to be villainous for the next 3 books, which, fitting, because, like, a trilogy, you know. But overall, I thought it was really fun. The weakest parts are Lemma. I hate that Lemma is... I hate her. I hate that she exists in the series. It's not that it doesn't make sense. They explain it adequately enough, but it's so needless and pointless and just annoying that she's around. We're supposed to be focusing on Jason and the family and how they're all dealing with this conflict. And then we have to have these sections with Lemma. Now, the only reason that was slightly more tolerable in this book is because of the things she interacts with, which I'll get into in spoilers because I don't want to ruin that for you. But there's some really interesting and thought-provoking stuff there. Overall, I recommend this book 110%. It was really fun, fast-paced novel. There are some amazing action scenes. There may even be one between Luke and Jason. There may be a couple really good scenes with Luke and Jason in this book, and I'm not going to get into it here. But you should read the book to find out, if you make it this far into the series. And lastly, just because I feel like I've been misunderstood, maybe, possibly, when I say the dark side corrupts, I don't mean that choice isn't a factor, that you are just like possessed of all your will. I believe the road to hell can be paved with good intentions. And I believe, just like in real life, people always have a choice. However, in Star Wars, there is a spiritual realm. And that spiritual realm does affect your thinking, your mindset, and how you view the world the longer you let it consume you. And I think that's just factually true. I don't think you can really dispute me on that. Okay, so when I say Jason is getting corrupted by the dark side, which the whole thing of him believing that the dark side can't corrupt is inherently the thing that makes him so corruptible because he believes he can't be, is the problem. You see, every decision is his own. Every decision he makes is of his own free will. And that is true. However, the more you use dark side techniques, the more you have a dark side ideology, the longer you bask in that, the longer you soak on that, the longer it becomes you. Do you see what I'm saying? It is your choice all the way through. Through and through. It is his choice. He's making these decisions. But the more and more he does it, the more and more the dark side is filling his brain with stuff. It's not that it's telling him what to do, but suggestions are made. You get voices in your head, your little conscience. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And should I not do this becomes less and less. You become less and less reluctant the more and more you bask in dark side things. So you use force lightning, you choke somebody out, you kill somebody, you do this, you do that. In anger, it grows and grows and grows. Like, every decision that Anakin Skywalker made led him to becoming Darth Vader. But at the same time, the way Darth Vader thinks, the way Darth Vader acts, is not the same as Anakin Skywalker. There is a distinction there. They're the same person, but there's a distinction in mindset and ideology and views from the two. And it's the same thing with every other character that's ever been a dark side user. So, again, I think Legacy of the Force, more than any other series, shows a very nuanced and slow descent for somebody who was a hero at the end of New Jedi Order. That's undisputed. Again, I think it's a mix of things we don't know, because we haven't seen the 5-year journey. But I think there's still something here rather compelling about a man who believes there's no such thing as spirituality in the sense that there is no light or dark side forces in the world. There's only us and our choices, and that's all there is to it. That I am good, that the things I do are for the good of everyone. Therefore, corruption is impossible. But power corrupts in of itself, just in any fiction, whether that be Star Wars, whether that be Star Trek. Power just corrupts a lot of people, even if it's, in a completely atheistic worldview with no spiritual reality. But you include that, it makes it even clearer, makes it even stronger of a point to make. So I just wanted to readdress that, because I know, everything that has led to this has been Jason's choice. But the more choices he makes in this direction, the less the light within him remains. it diminishes, 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 diminishes. So all Jason can see, choices left to make, are dark ones. Does that make sense? Anyway, I think this book was great. It was a lot of fun. So far, Karen Travis's books in this series, the two that I've read so far, have been the most emotionally impactful. Troy Dennings are the most fun and engaging. And then Alston furthers the plot, sometimes having some nice character moments. And that's about it so far. And it's sad to say. It's crazy to me that somehow Alston has the weakest books in this series. But it also might simply be because, his heart wasn't in it for the things they asked him to do. And that's fair. I know not all the decisions made in the series was something that Alston necessarily agreed with. I mean, he agreed to go in the series. He knew the direction it was going to take. He agreed to it. But that doesn't mean he agreed with every decision made. So I can understand if his heart wasn't necessarily in it as much. Because there's definitely a lot more life, if I remember correctly, breathed in Fate of the Jedi by him than in this series. But who knows? Maybe the next book, Fury, will change my mind on Alston's work in this series. But regardless, I don't think any of these books so far have been bad. I just think so far I've enjoyed Alston's the least. But overall, again, I still think this series is fantastic, and I think it's well worth your time. I mean, get into spoilers. If you don't want that, get out. So, I already mentioned Kaidus tempting Tahiri. Kaidus talks to Tino Khan. This is a distinction. It is Kaidus, not Jason, because while Kaidus and Jason both love Tino Khan, Kaidus kind of orchestrated this whole conversation, which was, meant to be an intimate, I love you, have missed you, conversation to do. I need your fleet. And that's ultimately what he was doing. And, she even realizes when she's talking to him, like, he segued into this on purpose. This wasn't a natural flowing conversation. He was directing it to eventually reach here. Which makes her feel kind of used, which is absolutely what was happening. And I thought that whole scene was really good. Seeing Saba is great. I love Saba. Saba's one of my favorite. I know it may be Troy Dennings' pet character. I don't care. I love Saba 17. She's incredible. Only thing that was a bit weird is, well, Leia's supposed to be giving a speech on Mara for the funeral, but Jason had the Gak go and contain them, or try to contain them, and they had to run away, so they didn't get a chance to come to the funeral. So they asked Saba 17 to do it instead, and she says, "Why? I don't understand why you want me to do it. I don't know. You humans mourn." What? 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 Did Force Heretic 1? Where Saba mourned the fact that she accidentally killed her own people when she was attacking the Vong? And when she lost like half her sons during Star by Star? Or her clan or whatever? Whatever they're called, brood, whatever the fudge you want to call it. She doesn't understand loss. Maybe it's just in the sense that she doesn't deal with it in the same way that humans do. But it's just worded weirdly, because she definitely understands loss, because she's had her fair share of it. She's a mother that has lost several children. I think she understands. But that was the only part that kind of upset me, because like, no, what? But the whole funeral scene, Jason showing up, it's really good, And Tino Cobb before in the previous scene asked him to make peace, which Jason is not going to keep his word on, or should I say, Kaidus will not keep his word on. He also has the Gag take over the Academy on Ossus. I thought I completely forgot this. I thought Cam Solusar and Tyone Solusar both just died in this book and I didn't remember. But no, they both survive. However, and I'll say this right now, I don't appreciate this aspect. I mean, I don't mind brutality. I don't mind violence. In fact, there's stuff later on in this book which I was like, yeah, let's go. But the Gag hold the students hostage and they hold the teachers hostage. And if I was reading correctly, they shoot off a limb of Tyone's, like a leg or something, or a foot, or something, which is just needlessly cruel to a character we hardly get to see. But I guess if you're gonna do it to somebody, do it to be somebody that we don't really care about, because we don't see her that often. But I was just like, whoa. I mean, good reason for Cam to get upset. You know, God knows what this guy's been through Dark Empire and everything, and Lightsider, you know, but, jeez. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that particular bit. Now, this will be addressed again later on in my spoiler section, but Lumaya knows about the One Sith. We'll keep that in mind for later. Ben's balls. He just straight up like, you killed my mom. I don't have proof, but I know it's you. I know it's you, Jason, and I'm going to take you down. I'm going to take you down, you're going to pay for what you've done. The big kahunas on this kid is incredible. Cal Omos's death. That happens in this book. He was introduced in, I think, Destiny's Way, right after Star by Star. Not after Destiny's Way. It would have been right after Star by Star. No. It would have been perhaps during Rebel Stand or Rebel Dream. I don't remember. It was before Traitor, though, where we meet Cal Omos, who is basically the replacement for Borsk Vela, who died during Star by Star. Cal Omos is a career politician. He's a decent man who doesn't always make the best decisions. You know, during the Vong War, it was very easy. Vong bad, Jedi and everyone else good. Let's stop these invaders who have been terrorizing us for 4 years. Or 3 years, I don't forget where it was by the time of Star by Star. You know, and he basically, you know, they just help the Jedi, they win, they do stuff. The only time Cal Omos kind of went against the Jedi and what was right and good was Alpha Red, which was stopped by Vizir. Then you get to Darkness, right? And here's the thing, we have peace now. The bad, good dichotomy no longer exists. Now it's peacetime, small conflicts that could rupture the peace that has been made, that can rupture the alliances and the friendships and community that has been made that will unravel. And the Jedi are a big proponent of this conflict, because you got half of them being joiners, and you got the other half going against the alliance's back. So Cal Omos is like, look, I get that you're a separate religious order, but you gotta listen to me. You know, so now he's kind of an antagonist, because he's a politician. He works within the government, and sometimes the Jedi don't operate in that, so that causes conflict between them. And then this whole crisis, you know, at one time he was going to talk to Gargajian illegally, you know, maybe to make peace, but it was still illegally, you know. Cal Omos is not a great, upstanding man. He's also not a horrible villain. He is a common person that got the role of leadership. He's not a main character, and that's more than just like, duh. That's also kind of like the point. He is just somebody that got put in charge, who's a decent sort. He is a career politician, and he tries to make the best of what he can. But in order for Ben to get a chance to attack Jason, Jason needs to trust him. So Cal Omos impales himself on Ben's lightsaber before Ben has a chance to extinguish the blade. So that is the end of Cal Omos. At this point, the Jedi completely abandon the Alliance and try to ask the Wookiees for help to stop Jason. This is also a bit where Luke finds out that Jason basically sent Ben to assassinate Cal Omos. Even though he never explicitly said that, he has that technicality, but everybody knows. So Luke shows up, And this is part of the beauty of this whole series. Remember, Luke is Superman of this era. He is the most powerful Force user in this entire setting, in this entire era of the universe. That's immortal, anyway. Of course, we can get into conversations about supernatural encounters and beings within that. But in terms of just mere mortals that were born into this world, Luke right now is the strongest one. Stronger than Crate, stronger than Jason, stronger than everyone. He is the most powerful being in this setting. And he doesn't allow himself to get angry very often. But he's pissed. And he shows Jason just how powerful he truly is. Without having to use, like, his hands or even move his head. Simply appear in the room, and Jason, sitting in his desk, cannot move at all. He is pinned down by the weight of Luke's immense power. It's phenomenal. And Jason doesn't back down, but it's clear he can't do anything. If Luke really wanted to destroy him, he could. No hold bars, no problem. It wouldn't be necessarily easy, as I continue to argue. I know people say power levels are stupid, but you can't deny, I'd say, in terms of just raw power, Luke has the most power of this entire setting. In terms of Force techniques, Luke is kind of a jack of all trades. He's pretty good at every Force power that you can think of. I don't think he's necessarily the best at any of them, but he's fairly good at everything. And what compensates for not being the best at anything is the fact that he's the strongest out of everyone. So, other people may be stronger than him in certain aspects, but they're weaker than him in the Force. You see. It's like maybe somebody's stronger in terms of combat, in terms of lightsaber technique, but in terms of Force power, they're far weaker, so couldn't beat Luke. But this is why I say Jason, after New Jedi Order, regardless of the dark side stuff, is the second, or maybe third behind Mara, if you want to go there, I don't know, Force user in the galaxy. Bar none except his sister, and maybe Mara. But with this dark side stuff, he rises above Mara and Jaina, and is second only to Luke. And I truly believe that. And I do think that basically everyone at this point in time, at least of the main Jedi Council Masters and everything, you know, that'd be Luke, Jason, Mara, Kip Durin, Kyle Katarn, out of those main people, maybe a couple others, they are all at this point in time stronger and better than even Palpatine. Like, they could take out Palpatine if Palpatine was around for some reason, with fairly no effort. I mean, look how evenly matched Luke and young Palpatine was in Dark Empire. And that was Luke still learning. This is Luke years later. If Luke now was fighting Palpatine in Dark Empire, the issues wouldn't have been 6 issues, because Luke would have taken care of it easily. And that's my point. Anyway, but that's this whole side note. But it's just amazing to see the power that Luke wields, because he's the son of Anakin Skywalker, the son of Vader. And we never really get to see him like that, because he keeps himself reserved. He doesn't do that. Same as with, kind of like with Yoda. We don't really, except in the Clone Wars, we get to actually see, you know, Yoda, I guess, throw down a bit more. But we don't. We see Luke fight plenty, but we never really see him use everything. So to see him effortlessly just hold Jason in place, or Darth Kaitis, he doesn't know that yet, is incredible. Earlier on, I forgot to mention, there was a Kaitis versus Jason Jedi discussion. No one knows about Jason's whole predicament. But, it's, people are like, well, why does it take 9 books to stop Jason? Because nobody knows. Nobody knows that he's a Sith Lord right now. Everybody still thinks that he's just a dark Jedi that is making really bad decisions. But legally, Jason has done nothing wrong. Inherently, anyway, that they can see. So they debate, should we just, go and put a stop to him right now? But they're like, well, what grounds do we have to do that on? Because he hasn't technically done anything. And they don't know about Mara. They have nothing to actually stand on to stop him. So it's just really interesting when they discuss that. And I'll be right back, by the way. Hold on. Sorry. Anyway, but some of my longer ones, and this is one of the shorter books, like Amigo. But here's the big kind of, probably the next big catalyst in terms of Jason's descent into villainy. He burns Kashyyyk. And he makes good military logical reasons for why this needs to be done. It makes a sort of sense. But it's still a very evil act. His uncle, Chewie, would be rolling in his grave. And it scares a lot of people, but, they follow through with it, they do it. And it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And, it makes Lobaka, that we've known from Young Jedi Knights, completely give up on Jason. Though they even have a sort of, mind, heart to heart with feelings without actually talking. And he's so upset and angry about what Jason has done. But even with all that hate and anger toward what Jason has done, he just, in the meld, just keeps going, why? Why? Trying to give him an out to not stop being his friend. All Jason, and this is Jason, not Kaitis, can manage is, I'm sorry. And then continues to try to shoot down Loey. And Jaina's, since kind of Darkness, Jaina's been done with Jason. So nothing new there. But any hope that Han and Leia had is kind of extinguished here. So right now we get into another controversial thing where people say out of character for Han, because he says we should have thrown that kid out the window when he was born, out of the hospital window. Now that is a dark joke, but he is joking. Kashyyyk, the homeworld to his brother, his lifelong partner outside of his wife, is now burning because of his own flesh and blood. His own seed has made this happen. He's angry, he's upset, he's confused, he's distraught, so he makes a really disparaging joke at his son's expense. Does he mean that? Not really, because even by the end of this book, while they know they have to go against Jason, they still mourn it. They still don't like what they have to do. Han doesn't want to kill his kid, doesn't want to hurt his kid. But what can he do? So it's not out of character. In fact, have you seen Han for the past 40 years? If anybody's going to make a joke like that when they're extremely mad and upset, it's going to be Han. And that is so Han, and so in character for them. Something that everybody can never say, because Troy Denning absolutely nails it every single time, is Han and Leia. More than Saba Sabatine or anything, his pet characters is Han and Leia because he understands them the best and he always writes them the best. And then this whole side thing. Alema meets the One Sith. Now, I don't think it's anybody we know of, because it mentions some dude with white eyes, and nobody that they described sounded familiar from the comics, but the One Sith there's a lot of them, so it's fine. Now, I will admit when I'm wrong, or admit when I've made conundrums for myself, and this does put a damper on all my hopes and dreams. I still have ways out, but the One Sith also claimed that Vergir was a Sith. So now that's 2 for 2. We got Lamaya and some of the One Sith people saying so. Again, the attention of the series is very clearly, no, she is. However, they still leave an out because they could have. I mean, think about it. They introduced flow walking in Darkness. They use flow walking in this very series. If they wanted to make me and anybody else be like 100%, just deal with it, she is, they could have made up some story excuse for why Jason needed to be certain about Lamaya. Actually, that creates kind of a plot hole. I mean, there's an issue for you. Why didn't Jason verify by doing this? But, he could have flow walked to a specific conversation between Lamaya and Vergier, explicitly showing how she is indeed a Sith. But I think the biggest thing for me is that every time we've heard that, it's been from someone else's mouth except her own. Even in the Legacy comics where she's acting really sus, she never explicitly states what her intentions are or who she is. She just acts suspicious. So there's still a way out there. There's three possibilities. One is exactly as Troy Denning wants it to be, which is that Vergier's a Sith. That's one possibility. Two, they've interacted with Lamaya, which is another thing. So perhaps Lamaya told them that. Because for sure, Vergier and her definitely met in between the James Lucino duology in New Jedi Order and before the Edge of Victory duology by Great Keys. They met in between that time. What actually happened in between all the time, we don't know what they discussed, what any of that. But Vergier definitely didn't stay with Lamaya. That's the most important thing there. But here's another thing. Lamaya and the One Sith. Now we know that the One Sith kind of started after Crate was imprisoned by the Vong. So this has to happen, sometime from Hand of Thrawn duology to the New Jedi Order timeline. Lamaya met the One Sith. And she was actually part of them for a bit till she went separately. So perhaps she told them that Vergier was a Sith. But also another possibility is this is what Crate has told some of his followers. Because Crate, as we know from the Legacy comics, met Vergier. Now, perhaps he assumed, based on how she was acting in the Legacy comics, that she is indeed a Sith. But again, I have not heard it from her mouth, and in the source book Jedi vs. Sith, they say, we don't know. All we know for certain is that she played a big role in Jason's life. And that is true. And I'd rather it be ambiguous. I don't want an answer. So I still think of a way out, but I will admit, that they're very clearly trying to tell me one thing here. And I will put that as a diss on this book, because I don't like that. But also another interesting thing with that is Lamaya. I mean, the last time we saw her, there was the Marvel Comics, which happened a little bit after Episode 6, and then a short story where she captures like a Star Destroyer. There's all this room between that. What was Lamaya up to? And this, and I was saying this to Marcel and Brennan as well, this brings up another interesting thing to me. Did she divert from the One Sith because she truly believed in the Rule of Two and that she needed to orchestrate that back in because of some grand plan with Vergier that she keeps talking about? Or is it bullcrap? Is that not true at all? Is what's really going on here is this unspoken thing between Crate and Lamaya. And I'm not even saying that it was necessarily always planned to be Jason. But what if, Crate's still building something here? He's not ready to unleash anything upon the galaxy. What if this distraction was on purpose? Maybe he even would have been aligned with their goals. Although it turns out that Jason isn't really aligned with what they want, so they kind of just, let him do his thing. But what if that was kind of like the intention? Like a huge distraction that could also be beneficial, but ultimately a distraction from the One Sith. What if this is some grand plan scheme by Crate? Not necessarily Jason. Again, that would have been Lamaya's, after searching and searching for someone suitable, she picked Jason. But I think that'd be really fascinating to explore, because we know almost nothing about Lamaya after those Marvel comics, so there's so much interesting room to explore something there with that, though. But yeah, there's a little tangent there. So ultimately, out of the three options I have, I think what I'm going to stick with is that Crate assumes so, because I think that's what most people assume so when they read the Ostrander comics, which is ultimately Ostrander's fault for, instead of just keeping it ambiguous. I mean, he does, but he doesn't. Jason versus Luke 2. Let's go. Okay, so Jason loses his fight. There's no way he wasn't. This is Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker is angry. He's lucky that he doesn't know that he's the killer of Mara, or the series would have ended here. But anyway, they're fighting. It's super violent, super bloody. They're breaking limbs. They're breaking arteries. You know, it's brutal. Okay, and Jason loses absolutely. However, he does really, really hurt Luke. So that to me is major props to this Sith Lord being leagues above Palpatine or Vader, because I'm telling you, I am certain without a freaking pinnacle of a doubt that Luke Skywalker, even by the end of New Jedi Order, would squash Palpatine and Vader like a bug. They are nothing to him at that point. He is so much stronger. So the fact that Jason, even though he loses this fight, as he was always going to, can injure Luke that much speaks volumes to the power that Jason wields. But also, with that, the only thing that also saves Jason here is two things. One, fear for the anger that Luke feels in Ben, and he hates that his own son is feeling that much dark emotions, and himself, because he also feels that dark emotion. And this is going to play a pivotal role toward the finale of this series. And we'll get to it when we get to it. But I think, again, ultimately, while I think it would have been better for it to be Tino Ka, I think it works wonders for the logical and emotional reasons for why Luke just doesn't clean house. Because what's one thing that's remained consistent since Dark Empire? Luke fears the dark side, fears becoming his father. It's the same sort of thing that Yoda talks about in Yoda Dark Rendezvous, where he'd be the worst thing ever if he joined the dark side. But he doesn't really fear it. That is probably Luke's greatest flaw, is his fear and, I guess, lack of faith in himself. Because he truly fears going down that path. And I guess nothing has really tempted him that badly, except for this, Mara's death. So that will be something reoccurring as you move forward, and why it won't be Luke who finishes off Jason in this series. But yeah, I have a couple more, but it was a phenomenal scene. Also before that, just oh my gosh, so many fun things here. We had, you know, Jason and putting Ben in the embrace of pain, and the entire conversation they have together is just phenomenal. You know, I love their dynamic so much. I hate how it's gotten here, which is why I need a young adult series before he fully turns to the dark side, of just him and Ben interacting, so this hits even harder when it happens. But, yeah, it was phenomenal, that part. Yeah, I mean, after all this, even Tino Ka bails. She drops her fleet, refuses to help the Alliance anymore, and she drops Jason, to be honest. And Jason has never felt, Kaitis has never felt more alone. And so I think this is probably, next to burning Kashyyyk, the next big catalyst into him devolving fully into a Sith Lord, is the loss of the ones he loves, which he knew would happen, but it's different when it actually happens, and feeling abandoned and lost and alone. And feeling like you have no one by your side will alienate you and make it easier to be angry and bitter and resentful. But we'll continue on, as I don't remember there being nuance, but as I was wrong in this book, there probably is more nuance in the next 3 books, regardless of how evil he acts. Lastly, Darth Vectivus. I have to redact my statement. I was wrong. Because I will admit when I'm wrong. Darth Vectivus existed. Why? Because the one Sith give Lemma a holocron for some reason of him that she doesn't use and like chucks away because it's useless to her. So there you go, I'm wrong. Vectivus does exist. Does that mean he was a good person? No. He obviously has to come from the Bane line of Sith, which was for 1,000 years. Nobody knew that the Sith existed for 1,000 years. Even by the time of the prequels. Took till like the Clone Wars for them to start searching for Darth Sidious. Or well, actually it was because of Darth Maul, but no one knew about the Sith. And he was apparently like a banker, he had a lot of wealth and stuff. So did Hugo Damask. So did Plagueis. He was still a villain, even if they weren't, actively doing things in the public eye. So I don't believe for a second that Darth Vectivus was a good person still. But I will redact my statement that he never existed, that Lumaya completely made him up. Lamaya mentioned a real Sith Lord and then twisted it to be, oh, he's a good guy. Anyway, but overall, this book was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. I'm excited to read the last 3 books in the Legacy of the Force series. And to rewatch an amazing fan film by the end of it all. Till next time, guys. May the Force be with you.